All right, so 6i is determining rules for graphs of circular functions. So you're given some information and you have to find the rule. So things that we've got or we kind of know already, definitely know, is period is 2 pi on n. The average is the minimum plus the maximum divided by 2. So that we're talking about on the y-axis. And the amplitude is the maximum value minus the average value. So that kind of information is going to be used. All right, so if we have the first one, find the values of a and n for the following circular functions with the form y equals a sine nt. So you want to be always looking at what the function is given to you, what form the function will take. So the first one here, we have the amplitude. So this says find the values of a and n. So we have just been told y is equal to a sine of nt. The amplitude is 3, so that's pretty easy. We just put a is equal to 3. Now, for the period, okay, our period formula is 2 pi on n, and we are given that it is equal to 4. Now, if we just play around with that algebraically, we will get the value of n. So hopefully, if you've gone ahead of me, you've got the value of n to be pi on 2. Now, that's all you need to do for that. It says find the values of a and n. If it said and write it as a function, then you'd have to put it back in, which we're going to do in a minute. All right, so the next one we need to look at how the length, so the period, by looking at the graph. So as you can see, this is actually a sine graph, but it goes further. It goes into another half of a cycle. So don't be confused or tricked really into thinking that 9 is our domain or our period in this case. So we need to find where it is. So if we're starting from here, they've drawn the line. So obviously down here is going to be where our period is. Okay, so in this case, we can see from here that our period is equal to 6. So you might get a graph and you have to work out what the period is, whereas in the first example, obviously, they said period is equal to 4. So now that we know that, we're just going to use it the same. So we're going to go 6 is equal to this 2 pi on n. Algebraically play with that. And we should get, hopefully you should get, that n is equal to pi on 3. Okay, so now we have to work out what the amplitude is. And we're going to look up here. I just have to be careful because there might be a couple of things happening. All right, so normally, obviously, this would start at 0, but it's gone up 4 spots. Okay, so we are going to see from that the vertical distance that it is taking is 4. All right, but we need to keep having a look. The vertical distance here is 4. So if it started here, it is now up here at 4. And the next part that it actually goes is 6. So it's going to go from further in by 6, so it doesn't go up by 1 in that case. So our amplitude in this case is equal to what this position is here, so from 4 to 6. So our amplitude is actually equal to 2, but there is something else happening. What else is happening here? So if you think of what the graph would look like, if the amplitude was 2, it would be going like this. So what else is happening to shift it up? We're actually adding a 4 as well. Okay, so in this case, we're going to have a plus 4 on the end. But because it just asks for find the values of a and n in this case, a is equal to 2 and our n value is equal to pi on 3. Okay. And also don't forget to use the formula. Okay, so this formula up here, amplitude is maximum minus average. Okay, so if I just write that there, it's a good idea to write this. All right, so max minus average. So the maximum in this case is 6, that's the highest it will go, and the average, which is where it's starting in this position, is 4. Therefore, your amplitude is 2. So you can either look at it the way I did first and imagine what it's going to be and what's happening at the end to justify the line being where it is, or you can use that formula. Either way is fine. Okay, now this says find the rules. So this is where it's different in that you just find your information. So in this case, it's giving us this function. So we're going to find A, we're going to find N, and we're going to find the angle so that we can put it back into this. So don't just find them without putting it back in. All right, so let's go for the period first. So the period is 6, and we've just done some other work on that. So if we go 2 pi over n is equal to 6, play around with that. You should be going ahead of me because you're so good at this now, and divide by 6. So you should get an n value of pi on 3. Okay, so that's the first bit done. So we have ticked off the n. Okay, so furthermore from that, let's have a look at the range next. So our range is -4 to 4. So at this point, we can assume that our amplitude is going to be 4. Now, the reason why we can assume that is because we look up here and there is no plus or minus on the end. It's not shifting up or down. So where it starts and where it ends, as in the range, must be what the amplitude is. So the amplitude in this case is 4. Okay, because there's no vertical movement. All right, so let's have a look at what else we've got. Period of 6 has been used, range has been used. So why have they given us some more information? Obviously, we're going to use that information. So let's have a look at what we've already got. So we have, if I just write this top one out, y equals a sine bracket n t plus the angle. But we have already found out that amplitude is 4 and n is pi on 3. Now, obviously what we need to find one more thing. Okay, so let's see what it is. We need to find that angle. And the other piece of information we haven't used is 0, 4. So let's just plug it in. So we're going to go 4 is equal to 4 sine, copying out. Now this time it's going to be pi on 3 times 0 plus the angle. All right, so then we have 4 is equal to 4 sine. This will be 0, so it's just 4 sine of the angle. And now we're going to divide by 4. And we have y equals, sorry, I'm running out of space. Let me shift up my page. Y is equal to sine of the angle. Sorry, 1, not y. So sine of what angle equals 1. All right, that's what we're thinking of here. The sine of what angle is equal to 1. So if you draw your unit circle, okay, when is sine, which is our up and down y-axis, when is sine equal to 1? This is when we are at pi on 2. So that means that our angle is equal to pi on 2. Now, as I said before, it's asking for the rule, so we have to write it all back in, and then you'll be finished. So we're going to have y is equal to 4, amplitude is 4, sine pi on 3t plus pi on 2. Okay, so that's that one. All right, last one. So a function has a rule. Let me just move my camera so I've got more room. Okay, function has a rule, different rule because it's got something happening on the end this time. It has a range, a period, and a value that it passes through. All right, let's have a look at the range first. So our range here is -3 to 1. Now remember what it says up here. The average equals minimum plus maximum divided by 2. All right, so we are going to say if we add these two together and divide it by 2 when you're thinking about the range, so we're going to go down to -3 here, and we're going to go up here to 1. So how much is that in between? Okay, it's 4, and therefore we want half of that. So our values of range will become, the range is equal to 4, and we want half of that because we want the average. So the amplitude in this case must be equal to 2. Okay, so I'm going to put a tick above there because we've got it. Let's have a look at the next thing, because the next one is what we've been working on already, and that's our period. Okay, so let's see. Once again, we're going to go 2 pi over n is equal, in this case, to 8. So 8n equals 2 pi. N is equal to 2 pi on 8. So n is equal to pi on 4. All right, so we're doing well. We've got A and we've got N. So we're after the angle value, and we're after a vertical shift. So horizontal shift and vertical shift is what we don't know. All right, so let's have a think about the N there. If we know that our amplitude is 2, and we've got to get to -3 and 1. So amplitude